Welcome to the Rational Egoist. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz, and we've got a real treat today because we're going to discuss one of my favorite topics, and that is self-improvement and motivation. So I suppose that's two topics, but we'll forgive my mistake. But to help us do that today is an MD. He is a pulmonary and critical care specialist, an author, mentor, and speaker in the intersection of flow, awareness, peak performance, and optimizing physiology. Nauman Naeem, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. Glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do in this space that we're going to be discussing today.
Yeah, so, I can, to really discuss that, I have to go kind of back to my childhood. So I grew up, my parents are immigrants from Pakistan. I was born in London, in Great Britain, and we immigrated to Toronto, Canada in 1975. I was about 5 years old. And then we lived there for a few years before we moved out to a town 30 miles east of Toronto called Oshawa. And I grew up in a very difficult neighborhood in the sense that I was the only South Asian kid in my neighborhood and in my elementary school and even into middle and high school. So I faced a lot of racial discrimination and a lot of bullying. And I really didn't understand why that was, because I never was raised to judge people by their ethnicity, their beliefs, their whatever. I always judged people on their character. So I didn't really understand why I was being judged and treated differently just because I looked differently or I believed something that they didn't. So, growing up, maybe not a lot of friends in elementary school, more so later on, but I really dived deeply into my academics, number one, but also I just got interested in human behavior, why people behave and act the way they do. That kind of led me to the path of diving into human potential. So I was reading the prominent authors at that time were like people like Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, who's since deceased, but I read a lot of those, and then other books as well, and then I just dived straight into this space of human potential, and I got fascinated by that. And that interest continued into high school and then into my post-secondary education. And there was really, to be honest with you, Michael, there was really no career path I was interested in. There's nothing that really fascinated me. Like coaching now is like a $1 billion industry. But at that time, now we're talking about like late 80s, early 90s, coaching wasn't really a defined career. And aside from athletic coaching. And so I was kind of at a loss. I was not interested in any of the career paths that were available to me. But there was something that was ingrained to me from when I was young, is that, my parents thought I would make a great physician. I'd do great in medical school. And what attracted me to medicine was the combination of different facets, which are health, focusing on physiology, and working with people, and also the ability to work anywhere in the world. So I entered medical school, I graduated, I got interested in the specialty of, I did internal medicine, then pulmonary and critical care. During that time that I was becoming a physician in training, I kind of lost, not that I lost my interest in human potential and personal development. It's just that I got so busy that my focus was not as much there. It was only when I got into practice that my focus came back to that. And that's kind of what brings me to where I am now. I can take the conversation wherever you'd like, but I'll kind of stop there and let you kind of lead it from there.
Well, the article I read that brought you to my attention had to do with defining our non-negotiables and the
Yes.
importance of doing so. So what do you mean by non-negotiables?
Right. So when I talk about non-negotiables, so the thing is that, especially this time of year, right? Like, we're closing out 2024, we're about to enter 2025, right on the cusp of it. People start thinking about, they reflect on the previous year, they start looking ahead, and they start thinking, okay, what do I want to do differently in this coming year that I didn't do in the past year? What do I want to change? What goals do I want to set? So-called New Year's resolutions, right? And what people find, and then I'm sure you've heard this from others, is that people set these goals, these resolutions, and they are really motivated and excited as holidays come to an end. And by mid or late February, maybe early March, they fizzled out. Now, why is that? Now, why does that happen? And I think that there's several factors. I don't think you can blame that on any one factor. I mean, everyone is incredibly busy, right? We all have busy lives. We have our work, we have our families, we have our, all the different, our daily chores and things we have to do. The thing is that the problem I find is that a lot of people put everything else first besides themselves. Okay. The thing is, if you want to live a meaningful and fulfilling life, you need to put yourself first. And that may sound self-centered or selfish, but the thing is that if you cannot be there for yourself, you can't be there for anyone else. You can't be there for your spouse, your children, your friends, your family, your work colleagues. You can't be there for anyone. So when I talk about non-negotiables, what I mean is there are a set of things that you should be doing on a daily, a weekly, and a monthly basis if you have set goals that you want to achieve in order to move towards those goals. And these don't necessarily have to be major things. They could be little things. And I can just demonstrate this with an example. So I have written a book, and actually I'm about to hopefully publish my second book. The book is Healing from the Inside Out. So it's just basically my research into outside of Western conventional medicine, all the different things that go into healing and recovery and actually optimization, physiological optimization. So, I'm a very busy guy. I'm married. I have 3 kids. My kids were younger at the time I wrote the book. And I have a busy practice. I'm also a practicing physician, pulmonary and critical care specialist. So in order for me to complete that book, my non-negotiable for that was I am going to spend, I'm just going back to remember it because it's been out for 6 or 7 years. I'm going to spend at least 30 minutes 4 times a week. Sometimes it was 45 minutes, nonstop writing. Okay. That was my non-negotiable in order to get that book done. Because if I did not set that goal, it never would have gotten done. And it did take me a couple years to complete that book. But that's just an example that I'm using. So when I say non-negotiable, what it refers to, what are the daily, the weekly, and the monthly habits and activities that you are going to do in order to work towards goals that you have set, right? So it's about the journey, not the destination. What is the journey going to look like to get to the destination that you have set yourself? Because often we are so focused on the destination that we forget about the journey itself. And it all starts, there's a famous saying, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And what I mean by non-negotiable is what is going to be that single step that you're going to take daily, weekly, monthly. So
what are the psychological and existential benefits of identifying these non-negotiables and sticking to them?
So the thing, that's an excellent question. So the benefits are these. The benefits are that everybody no matter where we are in our lives, we all have somewhere where we're trying to get to in different areas of our life. So it could be health, it could be our relationships, it could be our career or our finances. But the thing is that few people know how to get to those goals. There's been a lot written about success, right? There's been a lot of books about personal development and success, and a lot of it is about habit creation. So the benefits of setting these non-negotiables in terms of psychological and existential is that by setting these daily habits, let's just start with daily. Let's just forget the monthly. Let's start with daily. By setting a daily habit, what you are doing is that by setting a daily activity, you're creating, you're basically training your brain to take on that habit that is going to stick with you and help you achieve whatever it is that you set out to achieve. So this may sound overwhelming. In the article that you quoted, I talk about my daily, weekly, and monthly non-negotiables. And when I'm introducing this concept to someone who's never even come across it, I don't really explain it to them that way. What I say is, okay, let's start out with daily. Let's not start out, forget weekly and monthly. For example, okay, say you set a goal, okay, I want to lose weight, okay? I put on a lot of weight, I want to lose weight. Okay, so what are some things that you can do on a daily basis for that? So an example could be, okay, I haven't been physically active at all. So I'm going to just be modest and I'm going to set myself a daily habit of going for a 10-minute brisk walk. So, 10 minutes doesn't seem like enough, but it's not about the outcome. It's about the actual act that you're going to be taking on a daily basis. If that's all you can devote is just 10 minutes to go on a brisk walk, then it's a start. Set that daily habit. Make that a non-negotiable. Carve out time in the day. Usually early morning is the best time. There's been a book written by Robin Sharma called the 5 a.m. Club, where he talks about getting up early and getting most of what you want to get accomplished before you even, start your work day. So I'm just using that as an example of weight loss. I gave you the example of writing, writing 30 minutes 4 times a week for me to complete my book. And that's what I did for my second book, by the way. If you have the goal of growing your wealth, for example, make it a daily habit to look at where you are, look at your finances, look at your expenses, look at what's coming in, what's going out, where you can cut out unnecessary expenditures, and whatever you have left, what you can do with it, where can you invest it? Investigate that, research that, right? There's no one good path for everybody. So the benefits is that you're going to be setting a lifetime habit by starting off with daily non-negotiables. And the inevitable result is that your life is going to improve by doing this.
There's also the effects on self-esteem.
Yes.
When I know that I'm doing things that are good for myself,
exactly,
I feel good about myself. And it's sort of this reciprocal causation, right? The more I do, the better I feel, the better I feel, the more I do.
Absolutely.
And I like what you mentioned about the 5 a.m. club. It reminds me of a book I read a while back called Make Your Bed. And it was by, I believe, a Navy SEAL. I don't remember his name, but he talked about get up in the morning. The first thing is make your bed,
right?
Because then you have that, you've accomplished something,
right?
So I don't get up at 5 always. I usually get up around 5:30 and 6. But right away, I start my day with I read through the news, the news outlets that come through my feed. I'll read several articles to prepare for the day. I'll do my social media posting, scroll through social media, see if there's anything that I want to respond to, so that before I even get really up, I've already accomplished some things. So no matter what happens the rest of the day, at least I've accomplished that.
Exactly.
And what ends up happening oftentimes, especially in regard to the social media, is the things that I've posted in the mornings, people will comment. So then I'll be able to comment back. And it just sets everything off in the right direction so that I feel better about myself and I'm getting things accomplished.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, this is the thing. So it's about setting the tone for your day, right? Often, what I hear from colleagues and friends is that they kind of get up, and so here's a good way to talk about this. Reactive versus proactive, right? So most of us are living our lives in a reactive way. So what I mean by that is that, okay, so you wake up, you check your email, there may be something from work that you have to respond to, something you have to deal with, a deadline, your boss sends you something. Oh my God, you get all automatically you're stressed out. I got to meet this deadline, I got to do this, or, there's something to do with one of your children or a family member or something. Or you're just get distracted by what's happening in the media, what's happening in the news. I tend to have very selected sources of news media, because I find that a lot of the news media is just very sensational, fear-mongering, and it's not very constructive, right? So I try to access constructive sources. So what I'm saying is that most people, right from the time they get up, they're just reacting to their environment. They're reacting to email, they're reacting to social media, they're reacting to phone calls, they're reacting to this and that. So what I mean by non-negotiables is developing habits to the point where you become proactive, because those non-negotiables, those habits that you are ingraining make you proactive. You are becoming proactive. Obviously, there's things going to happen in the day, throughout the day at work or otherwise, that you're going to have to react to. Unexpected things happen all the time. Uncertainty is the nature of the world we live in. You're going to have to deal with things. But if you start off your day in a proactive way, and those unexpected things happen throughout your day, you will be better equipped to handle those things, which are inevitable. Those things are going to happen. But you'll be better equipped to that. So you will have to react to things, but it's about becoming proactive in our lives, proactive in every aspect of our lives, right? Like, not wait to gain 20 pounds over the holidays in order to go on an exercise program to lose weight. Not wait till, you and your spouse are at the point of separating and going your separate ways before, addressing those issues before they happen. Not waiting till you're in debt before looking at your finances, looking at your financial situation, your sources of income, how you can optimize that, maximize that. So there's very few people I know that are proactive. Everyone's a reactive. So, that's one frame of reference to look at what I'm talking about.
Virtually everything I've ever read about goal setting talked about setting short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals, and also said that we should break our goals down into compartments: financial, spiritual, educational, vocational, that sort of thing. Now, you talk about how we should have non-negotiables in various areas of our lives. Right. Why is that important?
So it is important because without non-negotiables, you can often go astray. Okay, so let me give you I'll give you a metaphor. Okay, if you look at and I don't know the technicalities of this, but when there's a flight, like a commercial flights taking off from one city to go to another, along their trajectory, there's always course correction, right? Because there's different factors that take that flight off course. There could be weather patterns, there could be all sorts of other things. Usually it has to do with weather. It could be, other factors, but that flight is always course correcting, right? On its way to its destination. The same thing goes for our life. It is easy for us because of there's so much, the thing about modern life, there is so much out there that's trying to get us to fulfill its agenda. There is the news media. There is marketing and advertising. There's social media. There are the people who are in our lives. Like, I'm not even just talking about family and close friends, but even, work colleagues. Everyone is trying to get us to fulfill their agenda, right? And it's easy to get off track. The importance of non-negotiables and setting these habits is that it provides you with a rudder. It's a rudder to when the ship gets off track, the rudder steers you back, right? That's the purpose of a rudder on the ship, to keep it going in a certain direction. So it's easy to veer off course because of all the different influences and all the things we're exposed to, especially now with technology. We know with our smartphones and all these other distractions, social media. So what I see non-negotiables and setting these habits are as a way to course correct in our lives to get back on track. I'm not saying that, we're not going to, veer off course in the course of our lives. We all are, right? None of us are perfect. There's all sorts of things that are vying for our attention. And some of those are more important. At any given time, there will be something that demands your attention right now more than the goals you have set for yourself. You deal with those things, right? You deal with those uncertainties, those unknowns, whatever comes up in the middle of the day. A family member gets sick. You get into a car accident, God forbid. One of your kids is dealing with bullying or something. So at school, so you deal with those things, right? But you never lose the ability to course correct back to the path that you set for yourself in your life, in various areas of your life. And the thing is, so what just to talk more about non-negotiables, what I tell people is, because it can become overwhelming, right? Because, there's not a lot of people I know that have a regiment like that. There are some people I know who do, but not many. So what I say to people is this: pick an area in your life that you want to improve, whether it's your health, your relationships, or whatever it may be. And just start out with one non-negotiable. Like we talked about the weight loss, walking 10 minutes a day. And then if you want to build from that, you can increase that time that you're walking. You can add to that, okay, I will do some strength training, make it weekly, strength training 3 times a week. Okay, you could add to that over time. I'm not saying do it right away, but what I tell people is start out small. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. This is not meant to make you or break you, right? So I think that's the importance of it, and it's about always being able to course correct throughout your life at any stage of your life.
You wrote another article that I actually just read this morning, and you employed the metaphor of the burning of the boats.
Right.
The first time I came across this, I think, would have been in probably 1995 or 6 when I read Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. Can you tell us about this metaphor of the burning of the boats?
Okay, so this goes back to a story from, I believe, the 1700s. There's a Spanish explorer, and he had a whole contingent. They traveled to across the Atlantic Ocean to Mexico, and they were trying to acquire an Aztec treasure that there was legends about. So when they arrived, basically what he did was he basically burned all the boats that they had traveled on, and basically shocked his crew. So basically what he said is, we are either going to achieve our goal or we are going to perish and die. Okay, there is no turning back. And it took 2 years, but they had conquered the Aztec Empire, and they had actually found that treasure that they had been seeking. So I use this story. It's a wonderful story, and I use it as a metaphor because the thing is that I feel like, we often carry a lot of burdens with us from our past, whatever they may be. You have to look at your life and see, what are you hanging on to that no longer serves you? Okay. Is it a bad habit like smoking? Is it a relationship that doesn't serve you? And I'm not even talking about your romantic relationship. It could be a friendship, like someone who just drags you down, like someone who you spend time with, but they're always negative. They're dragging you down. There's nothing good to say. I mean, we can all identify people in our past who've been like that, right? Is it a job? And I'm not suggesting that anyone quit their job if that's their source of income, but I'm saying, do you hate going to your work? I mean, does it just, you just hate it. You just do it because it's bringing you a paycheck and then sometimes you need to do that. But this is, use that last example. Like, what, if you don't enjoy what you're doing for your career, then you need to look at what motivates you. What are you passionate about? What were your childhood ambitions and goals? And start doing things in your life. You can keep your job, but start doing things that will help reignite that passion, and then you can slowly move towards that. But the point I'm trying to make is that in various areas of our life, we often have things that we need to let go of that we don't, out of just force of habit, because we become so used to it. So what do I mean by burning your boats? Is that letting go of things that don't serve us. And the clearest example is like a bad habit, such as smoking, which I can use because of what I do as a physician, as a classic example of something that, now, I'm not saying it's easy to do that, right? Because you get so used to it. And because I'm a physician and I treat a lot of patients, and they all tell me that it's just a habit. It's hard to let go of. But then you have to look at, say there is something you realize that you need to let go of that doesn't serve you anymore. Okay. So the way I help people approach that is this. Okay. So ask yourself, let's just use smoking as an example since I brought it up. Okay. So when I ask my clients or patients, why do you smoke? So I usually get one of two answers. Okay. So one of two answers is, number one is because it alleviates stress. Okay. It's something that they do as a stress response. Number two, because I'm bored. These are the two most common reasons. So then what I do is I try to ask them, okay, so you're under stress, and use this as a stress response. How does it help you deal with your stress? Because what smoking does is that, you're putting toxins in your body. It's going to affect your circulation. It's going to affect your heart. It's going to affect your lungs. It's going to affect other organs. It's going to affect your physiology in a way that you will not actually be able to deal with stress effectively, because the most important response in dealing with stress is your physiologic response. It's how your body deals with stress, right? Releases cortisol, releases adrenaline when you're dealing with an acute stress, but that can become a chronic stress. So I just try to help them uncover the fact that it's not really helping your stress. So then what I do is I try to get them to transition. What can you actually do to deal with stress? So it could be something as simple as, well, I could go for a 15-minute walk. I could do some deep breathing exercises, do some breath work. I could meditate, and I'm just using those as examples, right? So, and then for the one who say, well, I'm bored. Okay, well, how that's the one thing I just don't understand. I don't understand how someone can be bored in this world. There is so much work. There is so much wrong with the world we live in. There is so much that needs to be done, even if it's not your career, even if it's not your profession, even if you're not in a type of work that you're actually helping people or helping a community or helping a group of people or something. There is no excuse for boredom. There is so much that needs to be done. You can volunteer somewhere. Simple as, volunteering at a food bank and feeding the homeless and the needy. So I cannot accept boredom as an excuse for smoking, because there's so much that needs to be done. There's so much wrong with the world we live in, so much chaos. So I try to get them to, first realize that, and then slowly over time transition in a way that they can transition away from that bad habit of smoking to something that helps them deal with stress, that alleviates their boredom. So, yeah, I mean, that's my approach to that. Yeah.
You know, as somebody who, as a young person, struggled with addiction and
Uh-huh.
alcoholism or alcohol abuse,
Mhm.
I think it's vital to eliminate bad habits. And
Absolutely.
the thing that you mentioned with the smoking and most bad habits is they serve a desire, they serve a want
Mhm.
of the
Mhm.
person. In the short term, it seems as if they're a benefit, but really they end up being counterproductive to the very reason that you started using them. For instance, I might drink because I'm depressed
Right.
and I'll feel good in the moment, but then I start feeling worse about myself because I keep drinking.
Right.
And something that I realized, and I realized it even I think before I gave up drugs and alcohol, is how much of these habits, the need we think they're filling, it's illusory. Is that we think we need the drug or the women or the alcohol, whatever it might be,
Uh-huh.
the unhealthy food, and we become convinced that we need it, but we really don't. And then once we really sever the tie from it, we realize that it's not a need. It might be a strong want, it might be a strong desire. And that can apply to relationships as well, where we think we
Yeah.
need another person or we have to have this friendship, but
Right.
we really don't. And coming to see that, to me, is so vital in eliminating these bad habits. It's just to recognize the illusory nature of it. And I'll just tell a quick story that was really a very low point in my life. I was 17 years old
Uh-huh.
and I wanted to smoke some weed. And I was with a friend of mine and he wanted to smoke weed too. But we didn't have any weed. But
Okay.
this kid, he was selling crack cocaine. So
Oh.
we each said, well, what the hell? Let's just try this. And, we'll do it. We'll take a hit each and we'll get a little buzz. We ended up going through his entire stash. And
Wow.
in looking back, I remember thinking in that moment, I've got to have more of this. I have to have more of this.
Okay.
Something that I had never tried up till that point, all of a sudden within a very quick period became something that I thought I needed more and more of. And I never used it again. I never really had a problem with that. I had a problem with other substances.
Right.
But it was just amazing to me looking back on how quickly I was tricked myself even into
Right.
thinking I needed something that obviously I didn't need.
Yeah. The thing is, need is a very fascinating concept because it all comes down to who we truly are as individuals. So, when people get caught in whatever addictions, bad habits, and this and that, I believe it's my understanding based on all the people who I've treated and looked after is that we have a limited concept of self. What do I mean by that? So I can just use the medical profession as an analogy. What the problem I have with the medical profession, the way it is practiced, is that it just sees people as physical beings, okay? Because you have certain symptoms, okay? So those symptoms, okay, we do a bunch of tests, we come up with a diagnosis. You have, say, whatever, you have diabetes, hypertension. Okay, so we're just going to throw a bunch of pills at you, okay? So we're going to deal with the symptoms. So you're dealing with the physical in the medical profession. You're not looking at all the different aspects of who we are as individuals. And what are those aspects? Okay, well, we have a psychological aspect, the mental aspect, right? The mind. The mind is made up of the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. And a lot of the habits that we've been talking about, they reside in the subconscious mind and they're programmed over time. It doesn't happen overnight. So there's a subconscious mind. Then there's the emotional self, right? So when I look at emotions are how we experience ourselves in this incarnation on this planet, right? In our physical self. That's what our emotions are. It's our experience of this life that we live in. So there's that part of ourselves. And then there's this, then there's the vibrational aspect of who we are. So what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is that we are simply beings of energy, right? I mean, if you break down all of matter into its fundamental parts, right? You look at, let's look at the cell. The cell is made up of molecules, made up of atoms, subatomic particles. What are subatomic particles? Well, quantum physics tells us that basically there is very little matter in a subatomic particle. Most of it's just a vibrational frequency. You cannot identify any matter at all. 99.99999% empty space. So, we are beings of energy. And then there's the highest level of who we are, the deepest aspect. If you are of a religious background, you might refer to that as spirit. I like to use the term consciousness because it doesn't isolate those people who are not religious. Consciousness is, that aspect of ourselves that transcends, our physical body, our thoughts, our emotions. It's that deepest part of ourselves, right? So, when you see yourself as a limited being, it's easy to get caught up in, these bad habits, addictions, or whatever. But when you see yourself as that pure consciousness, that being, that energy, whatever you want to call it, spirit, that concept is unlimited, right? It's infinite. Consciousness is infinite, has no beginning, no end. And it is far more powerful. You are far more powerful than people. We are far more powerful than we give ourselves credit for, because we see ourselves in that limited way. And if we could embrace and embody the full spectrum of who we are, I believe that people would be living happier and more fulfilled lives. They would, not saying that they would falter and fall into, these habits, addictions and things, but they would be able to recognize it. They would be better able to navigate them and overcome them. And then start moving in the direction that they truly want to move in, instead of getting dragged down by external forces, by external influences, by these habits and addictions. So it has to do with how we see ourselves, what our true nature is. When I look at, often people talk about purpose. For me, we all have the same purpose. Okay, there is no difference between anyone. The purpose is to discover and embody our true nature of who we are. How that expresses in the physical realm, I call meaning or mission. We all have a different mission in our lives. We all have the same purpose, but how that expresses itself is our mission. And I feel that if more people could fulfill that purpose and discover their mission, not only would more people be more happier, more fulfilled, be living lives of meaning, but the side effect would be our world would be a much better place than it is right now. And I'm not saying we wouldn't have problems, we wouldn't have challenges, we always will, right? But I feel that we would have a greater ability to navigate those challenges better than we have been in recent years and decades. So, yeah.
Nauman, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a very fruitful discussion. Where can people find you, and where can they find your work?
Yeah, so I have a website, naumannaeem.com. I'll spell it for you, NAUMAN, and basically that needs to be updated. I'm having it updated, but you can find a lot of my previous podcasts that I've been on, some articles, some of my offerings. My book is available there. My upcoming book, which I'll be hopefully releasing in about a year, it's called Awakening into the Flow. That's not there yet because I'm still negotiating with my publisher. But once that's worked out, I will have information about that up there. And yeah, you can contact me through that website. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Michael. This has been a great conversation, and look forward to more.
For now, this is the Rational Egoist signing out. I'm Michael Leibowitz. Remember, share your likes and comments. They help. Till next time.